Yom Sheni Parshas Mikeitz Chaf Vav Kislev Shnas Tavshenayin Zayin Yeshiva Tiferes Avigdor. I'd like to present the question. You all know the story of Yehuda Maccabee at the Shio Kohen Gadol, a handful of Kohanim, 5, 12, small group of people rose up against the mighty legions of the Syrian Greek armies, and they put themselves in a crazy position. So my question was, where in the world did they get a license to do that? The most important thing in the world is a person's life. Pikuach nefashis is doiche kol ha-Torah kula. Kol ha-Torah kula. A minute of life is worth untold amounts, immeasurable. The halacha is a person is never allowed to give up his life, v'moser nefesh, unless it's one of the 3 cardinal sins. And that's if you're being forced. If you're not being forced, you don't do that. Now, where do we find a situation that seems to go against that rule? Answer: war. In the Torah, there's a concept of going to war. Now the big question is, how can you go to war? L'chayra, it's b'koach nefashis. You're putting your life in danger. It's a very good question. The Mikeitz Chanukkah asked this question. I heard this question at the Riskarov, and the answer was that milchama is not something somebody chooses to go to war. There are all kind of hilchas milchama. No one can decide, let's start a war. There's Bezdin, there's Orvitumim, there's Sanhedrin, there's all kind of rules of who you can go to war and when you go to war. One of the dinim of milchama is that when there is a halacha of a milchama, that rule of pikuach nefesh is suspended. That's midine hamilchama. So the question is, when it comes to the Yehuda Maccabee, he wasn't Sanhedrin, he wasn't the Melech. How in the world could he put himself in harm's way against such crazy odds when he wasn't even forced to do that? This was something that he chose to undertake. Now we grow up in the Western society where we like fighters. We like heroes. Our heroes are people who become boxers, people who become gladiators, people who become gang members, Robin Hoods, like about that. But in the Torah, there's no such thing. Al Pi Torah is absolute no such thing. I remember years ago, the Israeli army was undertaking a conquest in Lebanon, and there was a shaila how far they should go. And my Rabbi was saying, "Ay, mamish osir gomer, mamish osir gomer." They didn't have to fight this war. They chose to go into this war. It's osir gomer because the fashion, the roitzchim. Every soldier that dies, it's blood on their hands. I don't care if they take over the whole Lebanon tomorrow. One person dies. They're murderers. And he proceeded to state a lot of halachas like that. You want to know how valuable it is? Let's say a guy comes to us, and there's 1 million Jews, a whole city of Jews. And the guy comes and he says to us, the Irish government says, we want to have one Jewish sacrifice. Give us one Jewish sacrifice, or we're going to wipe every last one of you out. Any rational mind would think, okay, I'll give you one. Second rational mind, I think, okay, let's go to war. Self-defense. We're not going like sheep. There's no war, my friend. That's ritzich. If you do that, it's osir gum. Something that runs counter to everything that we learned in Western society's rational minds. You can't go to war. Some guy who went and, I remember reading as a child about this Jew, a fellow named Greenbaum, who got ticked at the Germans. So he took a gun in his pocket, he walked into a embassy, and he shot the German envoy. And that night, the world went crazy. That preceded Kristallnacht. That was what brought Mikeitz Chanukkah. I was thinking, people say, I remember thinking, reading about it, and the guy who was writing it was writing in a Hashmenoim way. The Jews stood up. What could he brought down? Like, how many Yidden died? How much blood that guy has in his hands? The right of. Can't do that. So you would say, oh, they're looking for an excuse anyway. It's all excuses. Could be. But a person has to know that heroism is valued by somebody who does. Everybody wants to know what the terrorists, my grandpa used to speak about it. That people ask, why didn't the Jews rise up against the Germans? You know what the answer was? They weren't allowed to. It was pikuach nefashos. It was pikuach nefashos. And maybe if you're a private Jew and somebody's coming to kill you want to kill him back, fine. There was a story I read in Slabodka about a Yid he was a brute. The brute of a mensch. Pashat of Alabas. And the Jews weren't allowed to daven. They davened with a minyan. They hadn't made minyan anyway. And in the middle came in like 6 Germans. And they wanted to take him away. So the Yid said to the others, you all run, I'll hold them down. Yeah? Maybe it was a Pekuach Nefesh Maisa. The guy decided he was going to take on Germans. He jumped on all the Germans, all the Yidden got away, and that day they found them dead. But over there, he figured they would be dead anyway. So he was willing to sacrifice your life to save other Yidden. You can't give one up. But over there, maybe it was Hashkem Marga. After the situation, you have to know. So the shaila is, how in the world did Yehuda Maccabees, and we don't look down on this place, how did they take, there was a grass to Sakon in the Welt. They endangered their life. How could they do that? The answer is, to this question, is first we have to hear a levush. Great commentary, the levush in Ilchas Chanukkah poses a question. Why was it? There are two miracles that happened to Klal Yisroel, Chanukkah and Purim, and we celebrate them in opposite fashions. Chanukkah and Purim, Chanukkah we celebrate Lahoidais Ulahala. Purim we celebrate Mishta v'Simcha. Why is Purim celebrated Mishta v'Simcha and Chanukah it's Lahoidais Ulahala? So he says, Klal Yisroel at the time of Chanukah were not being oppressed by a foreign nation who wanted to eradicate them, like Haman. What these enemies, Greeks, wanted is that the Jews should subjugate themselves. They should take direction and guidance from the Greeks. Like we know from the Ma'is of Antiochus, there was no gzeira of lahashmid ulaharik. What they wanted to have is lahaviram aldos. They wanted them to minimize, increase their religiosity, their dedication to Yahadus. Many kings have conquered another nation, and now they want the other nation to become assimilated into their nation and to follow their way of life and to become not two nations, to become one nation. It's been like that throughout the millennia. If Klal Yisroel would have been machnia themselves to the Yevonim and they would have let them go and follow their dictates. They wouldn't have bothered them. They don't want to take their lives. There was no lives in danger. They wouldn't have asked for more. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave them the strength and they conquered the Yevonim. Therefore, all we do is lahoidais ulahala. All we do is lahoidais ulahala, and not mishta v'simcha. You know why? Because since all they wanted from us was to be meineya us from religion, so the way we celebrate it is by strengthening our religion. Lahoidais, lahalel, mitzvahs, but there's no place for mishta v'simcha, which is a physical expression of joy. But in the time of Haman, where the gzeira was la'roig ulahashmid, the gufos, the bodies, they wanted to destroy all the physical beings. So the way we celebrate it is by doing physical things like mishta v'simcha. And that's why ribuy hasudas, which you do on Chanukah, he says are sudas harishus. As a by, just as a side matter, Rav Beryl, my Rebbe's older brother, son of the Briskerov, the older son, at a yeshiva, brisk yeshiva, and he was once complaining to the Beis Yisroel how his Talmidim are marich in their Chanukah mesibas, and they make a big deal. It bothers him very much, the bittul Torah, that they expend on the time. So the Ger Rebbe, the Beis Yisroel, told them back, "Nu, steht doch in the Shulchan Aruch. You're supposed to be Marbek Tzas. Marbek Tzas, Besudas. He said, Tzas, but look what they're doing here. So he said, my Talmidim, I'm not Makbana. He said, why? He said, by ins, Aktsas Aveira, a little Aveira, my Talmidim take very serious. So a Ktsas mitzvah, they also take serious. So I forgive them. But it was far in Eretz Yisrael. The Americans came there and they made all their Hanukkah parties and holiday season, and they made these 8 nights of stuff. And first they did off on this. I remember being a risk and saying, okay, so where's the party? There were party. But what for? Oh, schon gesehen Licht. Oh, afgelige Hanukkah. But based on this Levush, who explains the difference between the way the 2 Yomim Tovim are celebrated, the 2 miracles are remembered, one al yidei mitzvahs and one al yidei mitzvahs of l'hoides la'alel and one mitzvahs mishta b'simcha. So Rabbi Chanan comes now and says a gewaltige word. He says, "Was steht da? Was steht in der Levush?" You see, Rabbi Chanan Mamish, he extrapolated from here a dover nifl. And Baruch Hashem, we were zeicher to extrapolate from here also another dover nifl from Rabbi Chanan. Wherever I've said this over, even people who knew this Rabbi Chanan were boggled. Rabbi Chanan says like this: let's now analyze the response of the tzaddikim b'mei Chanukah and the response of the tzaddikim in the Yemei Purim. In the days of Antiochus, where there was no threat to the guf, to the lives, they went to war. And by Haman, where there was a threat to life, over there they just did Tzoim and Tefillah, fasting and prayers. What's the pshat? To the Chayrev, and based on the Levush, you should have forget. When your guf is in danger, your guf is being threatened, you should pick up sticks, get yourself weaponized, and make some action here. But when it's a challenge to the religion, that's when you should daven, that's when you should fast. So he says, that in the time of Haman, did not enter their mind at all to rise up and not be sheep and fight against Haman. That should have been a logical thing. Any guy today would say, that's what you should do, form groups. Let's don't go down like sheep. It wasn't enter their mind. What's the pshat? So Rabbi Chanan said maybe some chacham's going to come and say, oh, they had no koyach to go against the powerful enemy, Tiferes, 127 Medinas. So maybe it would be fruitless. It would be no purpose. Rabbi Chanan said it's narishkeit, because at that time they had neviim amongst them, and if the Ratzon Hashem was to fight and should stand up and fight, they would have told them and would have been meiser nafsham lahariga. They would have given their lives up. The Hashmenoim also, there was no chance for them to win. It didn't make any sense. And over there was no Nevi'im who told them to do this. And they undertook, and they went to war. The Tiferes is, and they made Haman, they understood that wasn't the way to be spared, to save yourself. You cannot save yourself from a Gzeiras Haman al yidei battle. Then they went in the ways of our forefathers, crying and davening to Hashem. But when it's Gzeiras Antiochus, even though they certainly davened, and they certainly fasted, it says in Chazal, but that's not where it stopped. They put their lives on the line to die b'milchama. That's what Rabbi Chanan says. Now Rabbi Chanan says, what's the pshat? What's the pshat in this? Yeah? Ma pshat? So he says, everything in the world that happens is a mishpat from Hashem. Hashem runs the world. But when Midas Hadin gets strength in the world, Hashem grants the Satan the koyach to wage battle against Hashem. You know? Mam Shapel. Rabbi Chanan says there's two mahalchim. There's something called Maisa Satan, and there's something called Maisa Hashem. All Gezeiros that happen to Klal Yisroel fall into one of these two categories. Either the Maisa Hashem or the Maisa Satan. Maisa Satan means where the Satan is given power to challenge you in a way that it appears against Hashem. That's Maisa Satan. You hear that? Maisa Hashem is something that comes straight from Hashem. What's the difference? This is like this. When there is a Gzeira to kill Klal Yisroel, that's not Maisa Satan. That's Maisa Hashem. That's a direct message from Hashem, between us and Hashem. A guy comes with a sword, a guy comes with a knife, a guy comes with fire bombs. That's a direct message from Hashem. That's Maisa Hashem. And there's one way to respond to that. Tshuva. Hashem's telling you, you got to do tshuva. You know that, Chaim? That's called Maisa Hashem. You look like it's really getting you inspired in your reaction. So, Baruch Hashem. But, and in that, then there's Maisa Hashem. In that case, it will no hatzlacha whatsoever ever to fight back. The people want to know what to do with the Arabs. That's Xeris on the Guf. They don't want us to go over to becoming Muslims. They're not trying to get us to give up Yiddishkeit. They want to kill Jews. So what do they try? Try all kind of eitzes, unbelievable. And the government and the Shin Bet, they bamish. The Israelis are hard at work figuring out how to find the lone wolf and the lone sheep, and how to protect the one sheep among 70 wolves, 70 Zavim. Does it help? No. After a year's time, Hashem decides this Gzeira is going to pass. What did the Israelis get up and say? The government? Baruch Hashem, we have it now under control. We have algorithms. We figure out in the computer who the lone wolves are. We try to we catch them before they do it. So what does Hashem say? Okay, fire intifada. All of a sudden they start making fires all over to 1, 2 days, 3 days. Eretz Yisroel was in flames. You know how much, it's amazing how much property was destroyed. How many houses were destroyed. Lives, years, decades were wiped out. Not one, not two, tens and tens. How many acres? They turned the country into one big conflagration. Hashem says, you're not doing Jews. So what does Hashem do? He arranges that two Arabs get caught. We got two Arabs. You think these two Arabs have burnt the whole Eretz Yisrael? You know what I mean? We found the guys. Here's that. Now this is going to stop. Hashem comes up next. There's only one Eitzah, and that Eitzah is Tzoim Utfila. But when you have a Gzeira against your guf, then Hashem, that's a Gzeira against your guf. It's a Gzeira against your guf. That's not a Maisa Satan. That's Maisa Hashem. A Gzeira against one's guf is a Maisa from Hashem directly to you, and He's telling you, wake up, do tshuva. So anytime you have a physical threat, Hashem's telling you, do tshuva. But if you don't have a physical threat, but the threat you have is against your religion, you have a religious threat, that's not a Ma'aseh Hashem. You know why? Hashem never is going to bring you in a situation you can't do mitzvahs. Hashem tells you, I want you to learn Torah. He's not going to make a gzeira not to learn Torah. Hashem wants you to do bris milah. Everything not do bris milah. Hashem wants you to keep Shabbos. He's not going to tell you to keep Shabbos. It's crazy. Hashem never do such a thing. So what happens? How do we get such a gzeira made? What happens is the Yidden themselves become nisrashal, become weak in mitzvahs. When you become weak in mitzvahs, the Satan now becomes empowered to challenge you in those mitzvahs. So, in the time of Antiochus, the Yidden became weak in their Yahadus, so that empowered the Greeks to make all kind of gzeiras against Yahadus. No Torah, no this, no that. Mevatel the whole Ma'aseh Chayim, right? And then, what does that do? There's only one eitzah for that. The eitzah for that is Tshuva doesn't help over there. Tshuva won't help. You know why? Once the Satan has the power in his hand, once the Satan was empowered, there's only one way to take it away from the Satan. And that is, you got to be Meiser Nefesh for it. Now Hashem wants to see you be Meiser Nefesh. In order to weaken the power of the Satan, it demands you stand up and be Meiser yourself, lahariga b'milchama mamish. You would think just the opposite. Once the Satan got it, you got to demonstrate, because you know why? It's Lumazeh. I showed first, I didn't care about Yiddishkeit. I didn't care about the mitzvahs. Now I have to demonstrate I care so much, I'm ready to Meiser Nefesh and put my life, fight for it. So over here, when it was a Yiddishkeit Zach, over here when it was a religiosity problem, we were being oppressed, a religion, so the only eitzah was to show I care about religion so much, I'm ready to fight for it. Yeah, this is unbelievable. Now this insight now explains our original question. Our original question was, how in the world were they allowed to go to war? It's Pekuach Nefesh. The answer is, there's a mitzvah called Mesiras Nefesh, not the Milchama. You don't need a Urim B'tumim here. You don't need a Sanhedrin. When you see a matziv that Klal Yisroel is being challenged with Gzeiras of Shmad, the Eitzah Ye'utza is you got to go to war. Rabbi Chana writes that his Rebbe said when communism came into play and the Russians began their terrible gzeiros against Judaism, he said what Hashem wanted from them was one thing. They closed on the Chedorim, they made a whole department of Jewish department. The Efsektia they made, it was tremendous, it was terrible. He said what they should have done was a handful of Jews that have stood up and go to war and be Moshe Nefesh, they would have knocked them out way long ago. And because they didn't, the Satan was empowered for so many years. Now this sheds light on our lives, in every single tzara that you endure. Somebody calls you up and you say he has a goyish neighbor, and the goyish neighbor is giving you tremendous tzaras. He's writing swastikas on your thing. He's breaking your windows. He's hitting your kids. So what do you think? What I would think is, a friend, get the old karate gi out from the closet, from the drawer, the closet, take off your shoes, go outside, warm your hands up a little bit, do a couple of hachi-dachis, and you go out there, you teach him a lesson. Vehi lo yisitzlach. It's not going to work. You know why? Because that's a gzeira on your guf. Hashem's telling you, do tshuva. Figure out what you got to daven for, do tefillah, do tzayim, get better. Whenever you're physically challenged, you never fight. It's never going to work. But I had a question many years ago. I didn't have a clear answer for it. Now I have an answer for it. My question was, how come Yaakov prepared for Milchama against Esav? Esav wanted to kill him. Why did he prepare for Milchama? And that's a different answer. Yeah? So the emes is, we said in the Rishonim it's Mavur that we're supposed to learn from Yaakov, and we're supposed to prepare for Tefillah and Deirin. And Milchama, when we're challenged, it says prepare for Tefillah and Deirin. And the Rishonim omit the Milchama part. You're supposed to learn from Yaakov, to prepare like Yaakov did, but they only mention 2 out of the 3. How come? The answer is because Yaakov was fighting a ruchniistic battle. Esav's hatred to Yaakov was over the fact that he got the brachas, and it was going to be his destiny to be the Yerush of Avram. He was going to be the representative of Hashem. They were being loichim amelchemes ha'olam. They were fighting over the shiftei kah. Yaakov Avinu saw this as a ruchniistic battle, not a battle like in the days of Haman, that they were just going to kill some Jews. But when we're challenged by Goyim, we don't have that challenge. The Germans, when they came to challenge the Yidden, my grandfather said that wasn't a ruchniistic battle. You know how you know? Because in history, when Goyim usually challenged Yidden, they always gave you an option. You know what the option was? Either get killed or convert. Crusades, all these tzaddikim became members. They said, if you give up your Judaism, we'll let you live. The Germans did not offer that offer kiyuz zekla. They didn't say, if you convert, we'll let you live. They said, if you're converted, we're going after you first. I don't care if your grandfather converted, your grandmother converted, your mother converted. We're going to dig into your Jewish history, find if you have a zik of Jewish blood, we're coming after you. Because by the Germans, it was a gzeira of Haman. And the response was tzayim tefillah. My grandfather said, had it been a little unity, that was part of the klol, there wasn't the unity. But had there been a little unity, we would have learned from the precedent in history, they would have decreed 3 days of Tanaisim, the whole Gzeira could have been averted. Could have been avoided. But, now, I'll tell you fakert. What happens if you have a religious challenge? Give me a story. Here's a fellow doctor, moved to Geisler with me, fine chashva doctor, moves to Cleveland, because it's better for his chinuch and better for Shabbos. He joins a group, big hospital. They don't make him tells him, I don't want to work on Shabbos, I'll work on Sundays, holidays. They mask him, and the guy joins this group. One day they call him in after like a year's time, maybe 2 years time, I don't remember the exact date, that what it was. They call him in, they say, we got some changes to do. You got to do Shabbos school. You got to do Shabbos school. What do you got to do Shabbos? I don't do Shabbos school. You got to do Shabbos school. If not, you got to leave our group. But we made up. You're right. Changed our minds. A lot of them Yidden, of course, also. Remember, never forget, they called me up on Erev Shabbos. They wanted to call ACLU. Could I call the Aguda? He was ready to make all the phone calls. He's going to fight this. Fight it. I told him, Tippish. I told him, do you ever heard anything like this? A challenge of Shmira Shabbos in the 20th century? This happened, in the early days of American history, early 1900s. People that challenge Shmira Shabbos today. Don't you understand what's happening? This is a religious gzeira on you. It's because you were shvach in Shabbos. What do you mean I'm trying to? I moved out of my country, out of my city, in order for Shabbos. I told him, Chacham at the biz. That's the point. You moved out, but you're very shvach in Shabbos now. You must be. Otherwise, you wouldn't be challenging Shabbos. So if you challenge your Shabbos, not because you're not putting on tefillin. It's because. He said, what do you mean? I said, I don't know. Let me ask a question. I said, tell me. When do you come home before Shabbos? You work every Shabbos? Yes. To what time do you work? Everything I asked him, what do you mean? What do you mean? He said, when's your last appointment? My last appointment, I take 1 hour before Shabbos. I said, excuse me? Do you work in the basement of your house? Do you work in your dining room? Or do you work in your shower? Which one do you work in? He said, no, I work downtown. I said, you work downtown? You take your last appointment an hour before Shabbos? You're Mechal Shabbos, my friend. You're not derech for Shabbos. You're not coming for Shabbos. Maybe it's 100% burn, that's what's your problem. You think you're being a tzaddik. My friend, I said, you got to get out of the workspace 2 hours before Shabbos. Last appointment, if it's half-hour appointments, you take one 2.5 hours before. You got to be out of here, got to be home 2 hours before Shabbos. Back and forth. I'll speak to my wife. So I'm giving you my word. This is what it is. It's going to go away. The problem is going to go away because that's the response. Don't call Aguda, don't call ACLU, don't call this, don't call your contract because you have a contract. Don't. Just do this response. Stand up for the honor of Shabbos. So I said, so what you're telling me to do is I should go in there on Monday and tell them like this. By the way, guys, not only am I not working on Shabbos, but I'm leaving for Shabbos 2 hours before Shabbos. They're going to really like that. And that's going to make you hire me. I said, yes. He says, Rabbi, with due respect, it doesn't make no sense. I said, I know, but this doesn't make sense either. That's what the Torah says. He spoke to his wife. His wife said, that's the Rabbi says, that's what you should do. But he thought he was going to lose his job. I didn't. Went in on Monday. I told him, don't say anything. If they call you and this is what you say. Don't say anything. But you start the 2 hours implementing this coming week. Then he called him in. He did the 2 hours thing. And then a couple weeks later, he was talking to the guy who spoke to him a few weeks before about the thing. He said, remember the thing I spoke to you about? We changed our mind, forget about it. I said, you see what I'm talking about? When it's a religious challenge, the only answer you have is Mesiras Nefesh. Here's your mother telling you, your father telling you, you can't go to yeshiva. But your mother tells you have to leave yeshiva, you must go to college. You know how many boys have this challenge? What? That's a religious challenge. Your father's not going to kill you. But the father threatens, I'm going to cut you off, I'm going to do this, but you've got to leave yeshiva. It's enough, you got to leave yeshiva. And the guy said, why do we give me this challenge? I said, that's a special challenge from you to Hashem. Hashem wants to see if you're going to stand up to your father and understand this is a Maisa son. The son was given koyach because you have a weakness. You know how many boys give in and go to college? I remember there was a boy in Delft. His father told him, go to college, and after you finish college, you can go back to yeshiva. I told the guy, absolutely not. I was fighting with him. His father was fighting with him. I'm out of the country. And it was it was, okay, it's okay. And the father was mamish going nuts on him. Got to the point the pressure was building. I'm pulling one side, the father's calling with the phone and writing letters, and I'm talking to him with this. So finally I told him, I saw he was weakening, I told him to write the letter to Reb Chaim Kanievsky. He writes the whole letter, my father's an Erlachid. His father was a nice guy. Just a little misguided, that's all. He meant the best for his son. He wanted my son to have a job. I'm not rich. And who says he's going to marry rich? And I wanted my son to have a parnasa. We struggled. So you should go to college. And he wrote all the details. And you could see the whole letter was leaning to explain to Reb Chaim why the answer should be yes. I told him this is not called the power of a letter. But send it anyway. Reb Chaim writes him back. Loi mit der Groitze Aleph.